Over 60? Revealed. 4 shocking frozen foods to avoid and 4 incredible must-eats for transformation. Margaret's fingers trembled as she clicked on the link, her eyes darting across the screen. The words loomed ominously, forcing her to confront a realm of dietary choices she had casually overlooked since Greg's passing. The articles piled up on her desk, a mountain of should-haves, each data point a testament to the risks she had so willingly ignored. Ever since that dreadful day when the house felt unbearably quiet, it was as though she had let herself go along with the sounds of laughter and chaos that had once filled her kitchen. Her world had shrunk to frozen dinners and take-out menus, each meal serving as a comfort blanket woven from memories of days that felt so distant now. But as Margaret scrolled, a gnawing sensation wrapped itself around her chest. How had she found herself here? The teacher who instilled passion for education in her students now stood on the precipice of unhealthy living, teetering dangerously close to an abyss she desperately tried to ignore. She glanced at the stack of lesson plans cluttering the table, relics of the life she had built, but now a dull reminder of a purpose she could no longer see clearly. Then came Lisa. Returning home after years of corporate grind, her daughter appeared like a storm cloud on the horizon, necessary but threatening. Margaret had missed her terribly, yet their reunion felt laced with unspoken expectations. As Lisa sampled the remnants of a frozen lasagna, she made her displeasure known. "Mom, these are dangerous. They're ticking clocks on our health." The words grazed Margaret's heart like a sharp knife, igniting a war within. Would she defy her own motherly instincts and embrace this new insight? Or would she cling to the fleeting comforts of nostalgia that kept her afloat in this turbulent sea of grief? Before they could unearth the layers of their newly fraught bond, Margaret stumbled upon alarming statistics regarding processed foods, the kind she clung to for sustenance. "No more," she murmured under her breath, the heaviness spreading through her limbs. Yet even in voicing that determination, she felt a pulse of panic thrumming through her. Would she be abandoning pieces of herself, her traditions, in the name of progress? As each day inched by, Lisa urged Margaret toward kitchen adventures, a world of vibrant colors, fresh ingredients, laughter rippling through the air as they tossed around ideas. But with every diced onion or chopped carrot, the kitchen became a battleground. Margaret's stubbornness glared at Lisa's modern take, igniting debates about family loyalty, expectations, and the haunting shadow of a past life so elegantly stitched together by recipes long cherished. Every meal prepared, every filled pan echoed with the sentiment of "who are we becoming?" Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every dish they concocted, it was as if they were dredging up the past, the joy, the pain, the wedges that had formed unbeknownst to them over the years. Margaret felt her heart swell with love and resentment, a psychological tug-of-war played out with each spoonful of quinoa. Just as she felt herself ripe for change, an unexpected call shattered the stillness, a voice from her past unleashing chaos she had long swept under the rug. She could sense Lisa's eyes flicker with concern, but they didn't have the time. Standing at this crossroads, the weight of their shared journey heavy on the horizon, Margaret's world spiraled further into uncertainty. Would she gather the courage to face the shadows of her past, or allow it to fracture the fragile bond she was rediscovering with her daughter? Margaret's heart raced as she accepted the call. It was a voice she hadn't heard in years, one that had been both a comfort and a source of painful memories. As she listened, old wounds flared like festering sores, threatening to sidetrack her newfound resolve. The conversations about meal prepping and nutritional labels faded into the background, replaced by images of a time when this voice had shared laughter and dreams, now mostly replaced with a lingering uncertainty. "Margaret, I need to talk," the voice said, laced with an urgency that pulled her back to days filled with comfortable familiarity. She swallowed hard, glancing at Lisa, who was thumbing through an organic produce catalog. Margaret sensed her daughter's awareness. The tension in the air shifted palpably. "Is everything okay?" Margaret asked, a tremor in her voice revealing her vulnerability. "It's about the estate. There are some unresolved matters we need to discuss," the voice replied, regret mingling with responsibility. The mention of the estate sent a shiver down her spine, an entanglement of legal obligations and memories both rich and painful. The very thought rekindled the grief she tried to work through in her cooking sessions with Lisa, and the realization of its significance now loomed larger than life. Would she be able to confront this issue while she was still grappling with her identity? Once the call ended, a silence hung between her and Lisa. This new storm brewed within Margaret, a mash of confusion and defensive instinct striking against the progressive waves Lisa heralded through meal experiments. "You okay, Mom?" Lisa asked, gently nudging Margaret back to the present. Margaret took a breath, sensing the burden of years of decisions pressing in from all sides. "I need some time," she admitted, the vulnerability escaping her lips like a confession. "There's a lot on my mind." Lisa tilted her head, the sincerity in her eyes accompanying the offer of kindness she had become so comfortable extending. "We can put the cooking plans on hold. Maybe we should focus on this first." Yet that wasn't what Margaret wanted. She tasted the crispness of fresh vegetables, the satisfaction of a well-prepared meal, her spirit ignited by dealing head-on with the future, not just with the past dragging her down. "No, let us keep cooking," she asserted, forcing a resolve she wasn't sure she felt. "We can use it as therapy to tackle everything else." The kitchen had become a sanctuary, a place where she could carve out new understandings of herself amidst the chaos of her life. And so they resumed, wielding knives with intention, slicing through not just ingredients, but layers of discomfort and confusion. But with every meal they prepared, Margaret sensed that it wasn't just the food changing, it was them. The laughter was a balm, and arguments over spices turned into deeply rooted discussions about family shadows, where they had come from and where they might go. However, the phone call echoed in the corners of her mind, and Margaret couldn't escape the gnawing realization that she had to face whatever awaited her regarding the estate. Amidst the vibrant colors of the fresh produce, she felt a nagging fear creeping in. Was she shrinking back from the necessary confrontation with her past? Or was she simply nurturing the strength to reshape her future? As they plated their latest creation, a tangy kale salad, Margaret could almost taste the liberation, the path ahead radiant yet daunting. An unexpected knock rattled the door, drawing her attention. Lisa's eyes widened. The atmosphere thickened with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Who could it be? Margaret's heart raced once more, and as she moved toward the door, she questioned whether she was ready for what lay beyond, not just the door, but the abyss of unresolved matters tethered to her past. Margaret hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. The knock reverberated in her chest, propelling a wave of anxiety through her. What awaited her beyond the threshold? The thought of facing someone from her past triggered a primal instinct to retreat, yet she realized that this moment could be pivotal. With a deep breath, she opened the door. The figure standing there was unexpected, a lawyer, briefcase in one hand, a stack of papers in the other. Margaret's stomach sank. This was a direct line to the past she had hoped to navigate without confrontation. The man introduced himself, his voice steady but clinical, outlining the estate's details with the kind of precision that made her feel small. "Miss Gregory, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I need to discuss your late husband's affairs," he said, glancing at Lisa, who had moved behind her, curiosity evident on her face. Margaret nudged the door wider, letting him in, even as her heart thudded in her ears. She led him to the kitchen, the familiar scent of sautéing garlic and fresh herbs hovering in the air, almost as if it could shield her from the conversation that was about to unfold. As the lawyer laid out the complexities, the debts, properties, and the distribution of assets, Margaret grappled with the swirl of emotions rising within her. These were not just legal matters. They were echoes of her life, and as names of acquaintances and family members resurfaced, memories blurred the lines of her present. Each detail felt like a reminder of who she used to be, a woman anchored by a past that now felt simultaneously heavy and distant. Lisa, sensing the shift, grabbed a bowl and began chopping vegetables, attempting to fill the tension with a semblance of normalcy. What should we do with the house? She asked, her voice breaking through Margaret's fog of thoughts. The question was innocent but charged, igniting a debate brewing quietly within Margaret. The lawyer shifted his attention to Lisa. You have to decide what's best for you both. Holding on can often feel burdensome, especially after loss. Loss. The word hung in the air like a bleak curtain. Margaret felt it press against her throat, stirring both anger and sorrow. She was a competent woman capable of making decisions, yet this moment exposed a fissure in her confidence. We're not ready to sell, she declared more vehemently than intended, drawing a glance from the lawyer. It's our home. Can we really keep it? Lisa's voice faltered, as if the certainty she had once exhibited was unraveling. Margaret pivoted to her daughter, their eyes locking. The house is a part of us, a place where we started anew after everything fell apart, she said, clenching her fists to steady her resolve. But maybe we should consider how we want it to fit into our future. We can bring our own energy to it. Both the lawyer and Lisa observed her. She saw the challenge in their gazes, a reflection of the fear and uncertainty that clouded her own mind. This wasn't merely about the property. It was about asserting power over a life that had dealt her losses. It dawned on her that perhaps returning to that house didn't mean holding on to the past, but instead transforming it a canvas for the new chapters they wished to write. Reinvigorated by this realization, she proposed they hold a meeting with the lawyer again, ready to draft a new narrative on their terms. She could feel her stance shifting from one of fear to one of action, an awakening that broke through. As the discussion progressed, the initial formality between them began to fade, replaced by a tangible sense of purpose. Margaret found herself wondering what other parts of her life she could reclaim or redefine. Cooking with Lisa had taught her about flavors, but perhaps there were other aspects demanding the same ingenuity from her. The lawyer departed with a promise to return, leaving the lingering weight of decisions in the air, but it was different now, tinged with possibility. Margaret turned to Lisa, who was still navigating chopped vegetables. What do you think we should do next? She asked, genuinely seeking her daughter's insight. Lisa looked contemplative, her youthful confidence flickering back. I guess we figure out how to transform that house into what we want it to be. Maybe we could even make it our cooking space. Margaret chuckled softly, but then the gravity of their conversation settled in. They were standing on the edge of a decision that would direct their journey. As she returned to the counter, she felt a newfound strength swelling within her, yearning for exploration. She picked up a knife and sliced into the vegetables with intention, envisioning every meal as not just sustenance, but as a pathway to their evolution. The remnants of the estate were still looming, but now they seemed less daunting. Suddenly, the phone buzzed on the counter, an unknown number flashing across the screen. Margaret's heart quickened again. What new challenge awaited her? Pulling in a steadying breath, she picked it up, ready to embrace whatever came next. Would this be another revelation, or merely a distraction from the path she had just begun to carve? Margaret stared at the phone, the unfamiliar number teasing at the edges of her mind. Should she answer? Part of her screamed to ignore it, to preserve the fleeting sense of control she had just grasped. Yet, curiosity mixed with an essential urgency compelled her to lift the receiver. Hello? Her voice was steadier than she felt, a thin shield against the uncertainty she was now inviting into her life. Margaret Gregory? Came the voice on the other end, a woman, firm yet warm, reminiscent of a counselor. This is Elaine from the Community Development Center. We recently received your application for the entrepreneurship program. The mention of the application stirred a mixture of anticipation and dread within Margaret. She had submitted it on a whim, a distant notion that perhaps she could channel her passion for culinary creativity into something more than just family meals. A chance to create and innovate, to engage with the world beyond her immediate struggles. Yes, this is Margaret, she confirmed, forcing her nerves into submission. We're pleased to inform you that your application has been accepted. We'd like to schedule an orientation session and get you started on your business plan, Elaine explained, enthusiasm spilling through her voice. Margaret felt her heart skip, excitement mingled with fear. A business plan? The very thought stoked a flicker of ambition she had long kept subdued. That's great. I mean, yes, I'd love to learn more. Wonderful. We have limited slots for a coaching session each week. How about this Friday? Friday works, She replied automatically, but a ripple of anxiety swept over her. Can I really pull this off? The doubts crowded in, the old voices whispering that she was not enough. But just as swiftly as they emerged, another part of her, the emerging Margaret, pushed back with a resolute why not? As she hung up, she turned to Lisa, who was now layering the freshly prepared vegetables into a skillet. I just got into this community program for aspiring entrepreneurs. She tried to sound confident, but the crack in her voice betrayed her insecurities. Lisa paused mid-motion, her eyes lighting up. That's amazing, Mom. What will you do? Cooking classes, I think. They help with planning a business around food. But I just don't know if I'm ready for this. Margaret's self-doubt swirled thickly, creeping back in uninvited. Why not? You're already a great cook, and I know you want this. Plus, it's something just for you, Lisa encouraged, her youthful confidence illuminating Margaret's gray doubts. Margaret's pulse quickened at the prospect. She'd always been the supportive parent, sacrificing her ambitions for quiet routine and stability. But now that invisible cage felt more like a personal choice, a legacy of past decisions that no longer defined her. Maybe you're right, she acknowledged, allowing excitement to surface. I'll go to the orientation and get a feel for it. It could be the start of something big. As the weeks rolled on, Margaret felt the weight of anticipation growing heavier with every passing hour. She began jotting down ideas for potential dishes, scouring online forums, and researching local food trends. Each entry in her notebook brought clarity, but it also fanned the flames of a gnawing anxiety. The participation would require commitment, focus, and the courage to place her creativity under scrutiny. The following Friday arrived with an electric buzz in the air. At the orientation, she found herself surrounded by other aspiring entrepreneurs, all grappling with their own fears and dreams. It was inspiring yet daunting. Elaine acted as a guide, leading discussions that forced participants to unpack their conceptions of success and failure. Margaret listened intently, her gut churning as she wrestled with the need to articulate her vision. Throughout the session, her confidence fluctuated, a spiraling roller coaster between inspiration and self-doubt, igniting a fierce determination to reclaim her narrative. At the end of the day, Margaret stood at the threshold of a new chapter, the idea of her culinary business crackling with possibility. But as she considered the path ahead, her stomach twisted with questions. What if she failed? What if she stumbled in front of others? The path to pursuing her dreams stretched ahead, brimming with both potential and trepidation. Was she ready to take the leap? And just as she wrestled with these thoughts, a familiar face appeared in the doorway of the center, as unexpected as the lawyer from earlier weeks. It was someone from her past, a reminder of a life she thought she had put behind her, a rival chef whose success had overshadowed her own ambitions years ago. What did they want now? The surge of emotions threatened to drown her newfound resolve, testing the seams of her burgeoning confidence. Would this encounter rekindle old fears, or would it serve as the catalyst for something extraordinary? Margaret's breath caught in her throat as she recognized Miranda, the chef whose name had become synonymous with culinary excellence in their hometown. Time had done nothing to diminish Miranda's aura. She still radiated confidence, her polished demeanor cutting through Margaret's uncertainty like a knife. "Margaret, it's been ages," Miranda exclaimed, her voice carrying a charming blend of warmth and practiced poise. Yet, beneath the friendly facade, Margaret sensed a competitive undertone, a challenge wrapped in pleasantries. "Hi, Miranda," Margaret managed, her voice strained, teetering on the edge of nostalgia and anxiety. The memories of their competing culinary endeavors flooded back, showdowns at the local fair, heated critiques from the food blogosphere, each moment sharpening not just Margaret's resolve, but also her self-doubt. "So, I hear you're pursuing some sort of culinary venture," Miranda said, a subtle smirk playing on her lips. "That's brave." Brave. The word hung in the air between them, laden with implications. Did she mean it supportively, or was it laced with condescension? Margaret felt her heart thud in her chest as she recalled her promise to herself, the one to let go of the past and embrace this new venture. But the familiar ghosts of insecurity whispered reminders of who she used to be against what she could still become. "Yes," Margaret replied, her voice firming as she squared her shoulders. "I'm looking to develop a business around my cooking. Something personal, something that matters." Interesting. Do you think you have what it takes? Miranda's challenge was immediate, a spark meant to provoke. In that moment, Margaret felt the weight of every self-critical whisper from years of quiet complacency. But in the same breath, a spark ignited within her, a resolve to rise beyond the fear that had long shackled her. I believe I do, she said, feeling the words rise powerfully from her core. I think I'm finally ready to invest in my passion. Miranda leaned in slightly, her curiosity piqued. And what is your plan? Cookbooks? A food truck? Each question was a probe, each scenario painting a picture Margaret hadn't dared to fully form yet. A little of both, she acknowledged, catching her breath. But what matters is the experience I want to create around food, something that encourages connection and just joy. Joy. The word hung between them as Miranda raised her eyebrows, a challenge contorting into intrigue. Well, you'll need more than joy to compete in this industry. It'll eat you alive if you're not careful. Margaret felt a rush of heat in her cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from a sudden rush of clarity. The kitchen was her safe space, her sanctuary where she poured love into every dish. If she allowed herself to embrace that joy and channel it into something tangible, perhaps this would shift the narrative she had authored for so long. Maybe I'll surprise you, Margaret countered, the exchange jolting her into a fierce determination. I've learned that it's time to redefine what success means for me. Miranda's expression shifted to one of genuine interest, almost impressed. Well, I hope you do. You'll need to carve out your niche and push through that imposter syndrome. You're going to face people doubting your abilities, just as I'm doing now. Thank you for the warning, Margaret replied, holding her ground. Each word solidified her resolve, cutting through any remaining threads of self-doubt. But I've already taken the first step. I'm not looking back. As Miranda nodded, she seemed to accept the challenge, the tension shifting to a curious camaraderie. Their paths had diverged, but perhaps there lay an unspoken acknowledgement of their shared struggles. The encounter ignited something profound within Margaret, an acceptance of not just her culinary skill, but also her right to stand firm amidst the noise of doubt. Yet, as they parted, a lingering question echoed in her mind. How would she navigate the fickle landscape of this new venture with Miranda on her periphery, watching her every move, writing her own story into the ongoing narrative of challenge and growth? The moment she stepped outside, the weight of possibility felt heavier, yet lighter at the same time. The spark had been lit, but was it enough to propel her through the coming hurdles? With her heart racing, Margaret turned back toward the development center, determined to map out her business vision. But as she took her first step forward, another question surfaced. Was this spark merely the beginning of a more daunting journey into self-discovery and professional growth? And just as the answers began to form in her mind, she stumbled into a crowd of fellow entrepreneurs, all looking to share their ideas. The intensity in the room pulsed with potential, but one face stood out: an ambitious blogger known for ruthless critiques. Was her emerging identity strong enough to survive the scrutiny of the digital world? Margaret's heart raced as she navigated the crowd of hopeful entrepreneurs, each person exuding their own brand of ambition and creativity. As she scanned the room, her gaze settled on the blogger known for tearing culinary ideas apart, an expert reminiscent of Miranda but edgier, more inclined to harsh truths than playful challenges. This was, if anything, a potential minefield. The blogger, with her sharp tongue and sharper opinions, had built a reputation for being razor-edged in her assessments, erasing dreams with a mere sentence. Margaret felt the urge to retreat into the shadows, wanting to gather her thoughts and project an image of unwavering confidence instead of the bubbling uncertainty boiling inside her. Yet, standing before this wall of ambition and potential criticism, Margaret realized she faced a turning point. She could either let fear throttle her creativity or summon the courage to position herself among her peers. With a deep breath, she focused on why she stood there. She had a vision of crafting dishes that brought joy, that connected people rather than simply fulfilled their hunger. As she joined the group, the murmur of ideas floated around her, each conversation carrying a unique possibility. Margaret couldn't help but feel a pang of envy at the way others articulated their business concepts with such ease. Her own words felt stilted in her mind, lacking the polished delivery that accompanied years of public scrutiny. Are you thinking of anything more innovative? The blogger's voice sliced through the crowd, cutting into a neighboring pitch. The lack of confidence oozed from the speaker, deflating like a souffle. Margaret's stomach twisted. How many more dreams would this critic eviscerate tonight? The thought forced her to confront her own insecurities. Did she truly believe in her vision? Could she handle the potential objectivity of critiques that mirrored the knife edge of her past encounters with food judges? In that moment, she understood this wasn't merely about setting up a business. It was about claiming her space, embracing the hope encapsulated in her ideas, and deflecting the skepticism that threatened to choke them before they could breathe. Taking a small step towards the cluster of eager entrepreneurs, Margaret felt a resolve grip her heart. This was her time to showcase who she was, not just as a chef, but as a creator eager to cultivate an experience that overruled the snide remarks of critics. The ideas narrowed into a single notion: connection through cuisine. As she casually joined a circle, she greeted others with genuine enthusiasm, listening intently as they shared their visions. With every story, she discovered layers of personality behind each venture, each aspiration intertwined with personal significance. Margaret realized she was not just another participant, but a fellow fighter in a similar struggle. "Have you thought of how you want to present your dishes?" someone asked Margaret. Her heart raced again as the spotlight shifted to her. "I envision a dining experience that blends nostalgia with creativity. Every dish tells a story, connecting people to places and memories," she began, feeling the momentum build within her as her passion spilled forth. The audience was momentarily captivated, their eyes reflecting varying degrees of intrigue. She felt a surge of confidence course through her, feeding on the energy around, ready to combat doubt with her vision. But just as she began to feel solid on this new path, the blogger suddenly redirected. "But will that really stand out in a market saturated with Instagram-ready meals? Can you handle that level of expectation?" That voice of hard criticism landed heavily on her confidence. Doubt fluttered in her chest. Was this a mountain she was equipped to climb? Broader questions circled her mind. Would her vision resonate in an oversaturated market? Margaret's thoughts raced. This was reality. The thoughts of contrarian judgment mingled with the exhilaration of potential. She leaned into the moment, grounding herself in that feeling of joy she had longed to articulate, clinging to the idea that success was dictated by her own parameters, not by others' expectations. As she prepared her response, clarity emerged from the fears that threatened to claim her. This was her fight, and she was ready not just to prove that her food was worth the critique, but that she, as a culinary creator, was enough. Margaret smiled at the challenge, ready to confront the expectations others placed upon her, aware that this was only the beginning of her journey. Yet, could she truly harness this newfound resolve in the face of inevitable scrutiny? And as she gained momentum, another voice broke through, summoning her back to the present. Someone had called out for volunteers interested in collaboration. Was she brave enough to raise her hand and partner with others, thus intertwining her journey with new allies in a competitive world? The call for collaboration hung in the air, and Margaret's breath caught in her throat. The prospect of joining forces with other chefs ignited a conflict within her, an urge to connect intertwined with an instinct to protect her brilliance from being diluted by others. Did she dare open herself up to partnership, risking her vision for the sake of collaboration? Margaret hesitated, her heart pounding. She reflected on the disheartening experience of past group projects that had ended in disarray, led by conflicting egos and divided focus. Doubts flickered like shadows in her mind. What if this venture fell apart just like those? Yet, as the chatter continued, each enthusiastic voice around her served as a reminder. They were all navigating the same treacherous waters, chasing their dreams and grappling with uncertainty. "Collaboration can multiply your vision," she recalled a mentor once saying. That seed of wisdom inspired her, urging her to consider the potential. She had cultivated connection in her dishes. Perhaps it was time to cultivate connections with people too. With determination rising within, Margaret lifted her hand. "I'm interested." The crowd's attention shifted toward her, a swell of encouragement wrapping around her. The blogger regarded her with a critical eye, as if testing her resolve further. "You sure? Joining with others can mean sacrificing your individual creativity." Margaret met her gaze, unyielding. "Or it can amplify it." There's beauty in sharing experiences. Together, we can create something that resonates with more than just our individual ideas. The others nodded, intrigued, and a charged energy rippled through the group. As discussions began, ideas flowed abundantly. Margaret found herself immersed in conversations where harmony met tension, each contributor's unique perspective sparking new thoughts. She discovered a chef with an emphasis on sustainability and another who specialized in fusion cuisine, blending international flavors with local ingredients. Each pitch drew Margaret further from her cocoon of hesitation, evoking creativity she hadn't realized lay dormant within. But with all those diverse ideas came a new wave of anxiety. Had she squandered her chance to shine as a solo artist? Would her voice be lost in an ensemble of creatively loud personalities? Margaret loved collaboration, but she wondered if she could adapt her essence while preserving her core vision. After the brainstorming session, Margaret stepped outside for fresh air, seeking clarity amidst the cacophony of thought. The world felt loud, as if the din of the crowd had penetrated her mind, jostling to make room for new ideas. She sought a balance between her unique culinary identity and the collective input of her emerging allies. Peering up at the dusky sky, Margaret questioned her readiness to disarm those fears. She recognized that, while collaboration posed a risk to her individuality, it could lead to something greater. Her heart raced with thoughts of possibility and potential catastrophe. What if they all argued over creative direction? What if her ideas were overshadowed, or worse, dismissed altogether? Determined not to shy away from the uncertainty, she inhaled deeply, allowing herself to reflect on her capabilities. Her culinary journey had already been rife with challenges and triumphs. Each dish could be a thread connecting the tapestry of their collaboration, a blend of tastes telling a larger story. As she re-entered the gathering, the prospect of melding her vision with those around her felt invigorating. Margaret was more than just a creator. She was an orchestrator, inviting others to add their instruments to her symphony. She would not be merely part of the crowd. She would lead a harmonious blend of creativity, ready to face challenges head-on. Suddenly, the blogger's voice cut through the room once more, reigniting that sharpness of doubt. Are you just going to follow what others want to create? Or do you plan to stake your claim over this collaboration? Remember, the stakes are high. Everyone is watching. Margaret felt the stakes shift beneath her feet, the whisper of her past echoing, reminding her of how easily insecurities could pull her back to the shadows. But then, a flicker of resolve sparked in her chest. This was an opportunity to rise. With newfound courage brewing, she reached for her writing pad, prepared to draft a plan that would ensure her essence remained front and center, even amidst collaborative fervor. What direction would she guide this endeavor toward? One that would both honor her vision and intertwine the creativity of others. The moment greeted her with undeniable pressure. The reality that lay ahead was tainted with uncertainty and possibility alike. Would she emerge triumphant, shaped by the collaborations she initiated, or would she falter under the weight of expectation? The answer awaited her just on the other side of that fear. With an inkling of excitement and trepidation swirling, Margaret knew she had to embrace the unfolding narrative of her journey, starting now. The room buzzed with anticipation, and Margaret felt small amid a sea of energetic voices. Ideas danced, flickered, and merged, creating a kaleidoscope of culinary visions. Yet, despite the swirling inspiration, a nagging thought clung to her consciousness. Could she truly carve her identity from this collective whirlwind? She flicked open her writing pad. Pen hovered over the crisp page, waiting for signals from her heart. Thoughts collided. She needed a clear focus that would allow her to stand out as a distinctive chef, even while sharing the spotlight with others. Margaret took a deep breath, recalling the many lessons she learned throughout her career. Highlight the unique wasn't that what set a dish apart? Her secret sauce was not just her culinary techniques. It was her personal narrative interwoven with each recipe. How could she channel that into this collaboration? A surge of motivation propelled her to begin writing. She scribbled words: sustainability, flavor, local ingredients. How can we create distinctly thoughtful dishes? The questions flowed. Each thought added complexity and urgency to her vision. Who was she as a culinary artist? What stories did she want to tell? As she wrote, A presence beside her jolted her from deep concentration. It was Marcus, the sustainability chef. A contemplative gaze settled on her notepad. Writing down thoughts, I see. Are you thinking of your signature dish? They have to be, she replied, blinking the surprise away. I want to ensure my vision weaves into this collaboration, or I risk losing my identity. She felt the wall between them soften. They shared common ground. Could I offer a suggestion? Why not think about a dish that embodies our collective philosophy? Something that signifies sustainability and ingenuity? Marcus offered, confidence lacing his words. His idea sparked something within her, a fusion of their respective strengths. What about a dish utilizing local heirloom vegetables paired with a creative protein source? It could be a catalyst for sustainability while allowing our backgrounds to shine. The excitement in her lifted, punctuating the air with possibility. They spent the next few minutes brainstorming variations, both culinary artists adapting and evolving their ideas. For the first time, Margaret felt less confined by the group dynamic, as if collaboration had a chance to feed her individuality rather than siphon it away. But the contentment was tinged with anxiety as she recognized that their conversation had unknowingly altered her course. Who was she if her voice began blending into the essence of her peers? Stop. Panic wasn't helpful. This was part of growth. Uncertainty accompanied opportunity. It was a subtle partner she had to learn to embrace. Margaret halted, reflecting on her chef mentor's advice. True artistry comes through refining ideas, allowing creativity to ebb and flow like a well-written melody. It struck her. She didn't need to embark on this journey alone. She just needed to navigate it with clarity and courage. The gathering began to transform. Chefs moved from passionate discussion into palpable energy, sparking synergy that invigorated the room. Each individual shared their insights on ingredient pairings, flavors, and the potential audience. As Margaret joined the dialogue, her ideas began to flourish, layering her unique experiences over the burgeoning collaboration. Yet, in the perilous dance of creativity, a voice rose above the chatter. It was Jenna, the vibrant blogger. Margaret, are you prepared for the backlash when someone inevitably calls out for singular direction? You're carving into unfamiliar territory. Each syllable hung heavy like a storm cloud. The temperature in Margaret's chest heated. Why had Jenna chosen that moment to reignite her doubts? Was it fear? Or merely a challenge intended to rally her resolve? Restlessness solidified into determination. She could only control how she reacted. Backlash comes with innovation, Margaret declared, her voice unwavering. If we're unafraid to experiment and stick to our authentic selves, we might just break the mold. Such words released a wave of support through the group, stirring the creative spirit. Comfort layered itself into the chaos of uncertainty, pushing back against the specter of doubt. Margaret realized she was no longer simply an individual. She had positioned herself as a pivotal component within the web of collaboration. Absorbing this newfound reality, she glanced at her writing pad, pages now adorned with vivid sketches of ideas braiding together. But a gnawing question still loomed, unbidden. At what point would the balance tip into a space where she might have to reclaim control? Was she ready for whatever confrontation lay ahead, be it resistance from soon-to-be partners or the challenge of defending her own vision? The electric fear paired with compelling determination surged once more. As ideas began to solidify and collaboration deepened, a new journey was dawning, one brimming with potential, courage, and tension. Would she find her voice resounding alongside others, or endure the turbulence of self-reclamation in the creative fray? The shadows of doubt loomed ahead. Whatever the outcome, she would be ready both for triumph and for the struggle. But Margaret felt undeniably prepared, uncertain yet invigorated. She glanced around the creative whirlwind and took a step forward. Right then, a phone chimed, sending a ripple through the group's dynamic. Margaret didn't know it yet, but that, too, could change everything. The sound of the phone ringing acted as a catalyst, refracting the energy in the room like light hitting a prism. Conversation slowed, eyes darting toward the source of the noise, and Margaret felt an unusual current of curiosity coursing through her. The ringtone belonged to Jenna, whose demeanor shifted from confrontational to coy at the sudden disruption. "Sorry," Jenna exclaimed as she fumbled to silence her phone. "Just an update on my blog. One of my followers tagged me about a new trend regarding health foods. It's gone viral. Margaret's heartbeat quickened. Viral trends were a double-edged sword. They could spur creativity or stifle genuine innovation under the weight of public expectation. She had been seeking to carve out a niche within a complex web of culinary expressions, but now, uncertainty loomed again. How could she safeguard her voice against the insidious nature of trends? Jenna looked around the room, a glimmer of mischief in her eyes. Who wants to engage in a little taste test with me? Let's see which of these shocking frozen foods might deter our culinary futures. Her laughter, light and infectious, momentarily cleared the tension that had settled after her previous comment. Margaret wrestled inwardly, questions swirling. She felt an instinct to join the playful banter and push back against her own rising anxiety. Why not use this opportunity to redefine those trends? We might uncover something meaningful. The notion sprang forward with surprising assertiveness. Margaret realized she could mold the challenge into a platform for growth. Count me in, she declared, feeling the positive shift in herself. She quickly rounded up a group of curious chefs eager to test out Jenna's claims. Together, they gathered frozen products that claimed to promote health through dubious marketing. Each chef took turns presenting the dishes before sampling, adding layers to the unfolding conversation. Margaret let her pen glide across the notepad, sketching observations a new dish born not from reverence to trends, but as a reaction against them. The energy of exploration fueled her creativity as she found herself speaking more than she had anticipated. Ideas bounced around the table. What if we enhance that color? Or we could season this with a local twist. Each suggestion layered warmth and collaboration, igniting ideas uniquely spun from their own identities. Yet, beneath the surface, an unsettling sensation rippled within her. A gnawing notion whispered that while they critiqued these trending products, they might inadvertently be feeding into the very cycle they sought to challenge. The thought pricked at her mind. Was she now participating in a conversation that prioritized popularity over authenticity? Margaret leaned back slightly, a self-aware analysis forming. Amateur discussions often relied heavily on trends, but the inherent value of a dish lay in genuine flavors and the stories they told. She had to steer the atmosphere towards something richer, conversations grounded in real ingredients and conscious sourcing, rather than merely critiquing the food itself. Let us not just judge them, she articulated, tapping her pen thoughtfully against her chin. What if we discuss what each dish lacks in terms of depth and our own culinary ethics? Marcus nodded in sharp agreement. Exactly. There's a bigger conversation to be had around sustainability and respect for food. As ideas began to swirl anew, Margaret sensed a shift. The group didn't shrink back from challenging conversations. They leaned into them. The cacophony of voices matured into a choir of thoughtful insight, and with each exchange, she felt herself knitting closer to her core identity as a chef. Just as they started to draft the framework for a dish that would leverage their frustrations into action, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her mentor. Remember, you create not just to be heard, but to share deep truths. The weight of that wisdom settled heavily, pushing back against the uncertainty that threatened to overtake her. But as the energetic atmosphere wrapped around her like a warm blanket, doubt crept in quietly. Had they genuinely moved away from external validation toward a true exploration of culinary identity? Or were they still dancing at the edge of trend-based reactions? Declared intentions flickered through her thoughts. At what moment would the storm of inspiration demand clarity? Margaret looked around, inhaling the vibrant chaos, knowing her next step was crucial. Would she seize the energy to secure her place in this collaborative whirlwind, or would she be left doubting her voice amidst the rising tide? The choices pressed against her psyche, and the critical moment was now. Her determination pulsated. It wasn't merely about culinary success. It was an exploration into authenticity and conviction. And yet, that question lingered. How far could she bend the boundaries without breaking the core of her culinary self? A feeling surged. She would find out soon enough. As the buzz around her resumed, entranced by the tasting and conversation, her determination hardened. She would ensure that her voice resonated, unyielding, amid the tempest. A small pivot could change everything. The culmination of Margaret's journey towards self-discovery materialized in an unexpected way. Amid the blending flavors and passionate discussions, a vibrant energy enveloped her, propelling her to a vantage point she had not anticipated. As she integrated her vision into the collaborative framework, each moment solidified her confidence, rekindling a flame that had flickered dimly for far too long. The weeks rolled by, and the initial taste testing sessions evolved into meticulous planning meetings, where opinions were welcomed and ideas were respected. Each chef brought their unique experiences, weaving together a tapestry of culinary principles. Margaret found herself articulating her vision more clearly, morphing it into something tangible, a business plan that would salvage her personal narrative while pioneering collective creativity. With tenacity, her resolve crystallized into a definitive identity, a culinary establishment focusing on sustainable practices. They would offer dishes that resonated with their customers not only on a fantastical level, but also on ethical grounds. The gentle laughter shared with her newfound colleagues transitioned into profound discussions about the authenticity of food, the importance of local sourcing, and narratives embedded within their culinary creations. In defining their mission, Margaret felt her voice crescendo above the doubts that once plagued her. What if we create meals that don't just satisfy hunger, but inspire joy and connection? She posed to her peers, her fervor illuminating the room. The response was akin to a spark igniting a bonfire. They rallied around her vision, eager to innovate within the framework she established. As months passed, the culmination of their collaborative output materialized. An inviting eatery opened its doors, enticing patrons with fresh, locally sourced meals that echoed integrity and delight. The temporary chaos morphed into something rewarding. Margaret's name became associated with a narrative that transcended her past, now recognized for championing a movement rooted in mindfulness and heart, a torchbearer among her peers, bridging culinary artistry with a transformative mission. The feedback poured in. Patrons resonated with the culinary ethos, applauding the thoughtfulness layered within each dish. Reviews praised the dining experience, highlighting not just flavors, but heartfelt connections. The community rallied around the essence of what they created, an environment nurturing not just sustenance, but also a sense of belonging, a lifeline akin to Margaret's kitchen during her darkest days. Recognition followed swiftly, not just from satisfied customers, but also within the culinary community. Margaret received an invitation to a prestigious culinary conference as a panelist, representing a new wave of sustainable innovation in the food industry, a dream that had materialized through sheer determination and rebirth. As she took the stage, a tableau of reflective emotions washed over her. She had achieved more than just a business. She had redefined her narrative, transforming grief into purpose and solitude into connection. She stood there, not merely Margaret of the past, but Margaret, the confident entrepreneur, ready to impact the culinary landscape with authenticity and compassion. "This is just the beginning," she declared, her voice resonating through the room, confidently addressing the crowd that had once felt intimidating. "Food unites us. It tells our stories and honors our environments. Let us cherish that legacy." Applause erupted, filling her with a sense of accomplishment. She proved not only to herself but to the world that she could rise above challenges, embracing her dreams. Each moment distilled into a powerful testament. Change was possible through persistence and courage. As she stepped down from the podium, she felt the warmth of recognition envelop her, a validation of her journey, a journey that began in a quiet kitchen amidst frozen dinners, transforming into a vibrant celebration of life, flavors, and connections. The episode of transformation didn't cease. It evolved into new projects, partnerships, and collaborations that remained true to her culinary philosophy. Each meal served in her establishment was a reminder this was who she had become, a pioneer on a continuum of growth. Margaret smiled as she caught sight of Lisa waving from the audience, her laughter ringing clear. Together, they had turned grief into a culinary adventure of resilience. Side by side, they celebrated the journey ahead. For anyone who has tasted or been nourished, knows embracing change isn't merely a step forward. It's acknowledging the past and sculpting it into something beautifully hopeful. Now, I urge you all to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could ignite your own transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these powerful journeys. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Margaret S.' incredible evolution. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and inspire them to embrace their journeys.